Here we go again. It is episode 6 of our podcast here. Isaac cannot be with us here today, but I'm Peter Stratton, joined by Hayden Neidert. Hayden, you like to say hello?
Absolutely. Great to be back here. Unfortunate Isaac can't join us again here, but looking forward to talking a little bit here
For all
today.
you Isaac Wright fanatics, he will be back with us for Wednesday's episode, so don't worry. We'll make sure he gets filled in on everything we've been through and maybe give his takes about the trade deadline and the Super Bowl and such. But Hayden, you got a hot take to start us off right away, and I'm hoping this one gets the blood pumping. What you got for me?
I'll tell you what. I've been watching a lot of NBA, and some things happened at the deadline. None of the moves I felt like, other than the Clippers getting Marcus Morris, none of them were contenders. I felt like making a big move, to try to win this year, other than maybe the Heat, with their splash. But even after everything, I think that the Milwaukee Bucks have the best roster in the NBA, and I think they're going to win the finals. I think they'd beat the Lakers. I think they beat the Clippers. I think in the conference finals they're going to be fine. Whether it's Toronto, Boston, Philadelphia, or Miami, I can't imagine any other team. But overall, I think the Bucks are just too good, and the things that Giannis, of course, is doing again this year is just unbelievable. And no Kawhi. I don't think there's a defender that'll even come close to stopping him. Maybe Pascal Siakam or Ben Simmons at best. But I just think that overall the Bucks are the finals favorite, and the Bucks obviously have the best record in the league. Certainly have a chance to be on the record board with 70 wins, but nobody predicts them to beat either the Lakers or the Clippers, and I really think it'll happen. Not coming from a biased Bucks fan, although I certainly am a Bucks fan. I genuinely think that they're the best roster out there, and I think they have the best chance at winning in 7 games.
I think I have to agree with you there. I mean, the only person that I think can stop him, that's what it's going to come down to over the next few years, however good the Bucks are this good for. It's going to come down to who can stop Giannis. And so far, Kawhi Leonard has been the only one proven to be able to stop Giannis. And Pascal Siakam, I just don't think he has the speed that Giannis has at his height, even though Pascal Siakam, he's speedy, but Spicy P, I don't think will be able to hold him down. We're looking at the Celtics. Tatum, probably not going to be able to hold him down. I don't know about Ben Simmons even being able to lock down Giannis, to be honest with you. I think you got a great point, because unless we play the Clippers in the final, I agree. I can't see anyone stopping Giannis, not even LeBron. None of them.
AD would defend him well, and I think against the Lakers, it would kind of be a Giannis, LeBron. Chris, I'm sure, would guard LeBron. Giannis would guard AD. And I think that's exactly, same thing on the other end of the floor. And I think it would kind of be Giannis versus LeBron. And it'd be a fun finals. I'm not saying the Bucks are going to sweep any team by any means. But overall, I really do. Whether if Giannis is doing his thing or if we got guys off the bench, hitting 3 or 4 threes. I just think the Bucks overall have the best team. The Lakers were certainly one move away, which they've been looking for. They didn't get Marcus Morris. They were trying to get Marvin Williams after the Hornets buyout there that the Bucks ended up signing him. Great addition, a lot like the Mirotic addition last year that helped a ton. And then, of course, now Darren Collison, I just read Pete has officially said he's going to remain retired and not come back to the NBA. So, unless the Lakers go and sign a guy who's just simply a free agent, a Joakim Noah or something like that, there's really nothing they can do out there. And I think, that addition of Marvin Williams, like I just mentioned, is huge. You get a 3 and D guy, respectably, to come off the bench, or maybe even start, depending on what you got going on. If you want to play, Giannis at the 3 and Chris at the 2, or if you're giving one of them a night off or something like that, he certainly can still do that, even though I think he's 35. But really just a big addition, I think, for Milwaukee, and I really think they're just on top of the league.
I'm going to have to agree with you. Like I said, there's really no one that can stop him besides Kawhi Leonard. I mean, Anthony Davis, you brought up a good point, but is Anthony Davis have the speed to keep up with Giannis and the athleticism? I mean, don't get me wrong, Anthony Davis is a very talented and athletic guy, but I still would give Giannis the edge in that one.
Yeah, I mean he's just
Greek freak.
he's a defender, so I mean his size
Oh
certainly
yes.
matches up in terms of that. But everything else, I don't know. It'll certainly be interesting. I hope that we get to see. I would love to see a Bucks Lakers finals because even if the Bucks lose, I'd be happy to see LeBron, get a ring in a third location here, and maybe that would convince AD to walk away from LA. I don't think it'll happen, but there's a chance. Obviously, I would actually like to see him as a Laker for life. I think overall, if I were in his shoes, that's reason enough
Yeah,
to be in
yeah,
the
without
league.
a doubt. Moving on, one of the bigger storylines throughout the year were one team made a huge turnaround from last year in the NFL, and one team kind of took a major fall. It was from the Rams, going from the Super Bowl all the way down to 7-9, if I'm correct, maybe 8-8. And the 49ers going from 4-12 all the way to 13-3, and the Super Bowl. Even though they lost, they still ended up making the Super Bowl. So, Hayden, one thing I want to talk about: what team do you think can come from the bottom of the cellar, or maybe 5 or 6 wins, and turn around and make the playoffs? And then one team that can probably fall off and go from playoffs to maybe an average 7, 8, 6 win team. I want to start off with what team would you think is
Yeah,
going to make the biggest turnaround?
yeah. A couple of things I'll mention here, Pete. The
Oh, no
Rams
worries,
actually
yes.
were 9-7, but believe it or not, the NFC West, with San Fran and Seattle this year was so stacked. It was basically, I mean they certainly took a step back. There's no questioning that, but their schedule out there was fairly easy this year, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and they were only 9-7, obviously. So certainly a step back there. And when I think about it, this year, a team that I think was, Super Bowl worthy, although whether or not we believe the Rams, were ever Super Bowl worthy is another story. But the Tennessee Titans, Pete, I like to believe in them. I'm always a fan of small market teams, that make a run. It was certainly fun watching the Jags a few years back, and other times as well. But the Titans, I don't know. As much as Derrick Henry certainly is a excellent, running back and all that, and their late season run there. It doesn't necessarily seem like coming into next year they're going to be a top 5 team in the power rankings by any means. You know what I mean? And regardless if they take Mariota, if they take sign Tannehill, or if they let them. They get rid of both of them and bring in a random, maybe even a guy like Tom Brady, speaking when donkeys fly here, obviously, but you never know. And I just don't think the Tennessee Titans have the roster, to be an AFC championship team again by any means. So I can certainly see them take a step back. And then on the other end, you could see a team like, one of the New York teams. I think whether it's the Giants or the Jets, the Giants. If Tennessee is the real deal, and the Giants can almost do the same thing, with taking the load off Daniel Jones, their Daniel Dimes, as much as they can, and just let Saquon kind of carry the team. I think that's their best bet. And if they improve, in a few places like O-line and in their secondary there, you never know what could happen, in a weak NFC East. And then, of course, the Jets. Obviously, we were expecting a lot more out of them this year. Maybe not a playoff team, Pete, but maybe a 6-10, 7-9 team.
Seven and
I
nine.
can't remember what their record was. Was it 4?
Yeah,
Oh, it was 7-9. It was 7-9. Oh, that's right.
yeah,
They
they
got on a
were.
little bit of a hot run there at the end of the year. Still, it certainly feels like they're a team that's a move or two away, the edge there. And I don't think Adam Gase is the answer by any means. You watch him this year, he's something else. And then you watch, the guys he coached in Miami turn out to be, excellent elsewhere, and it just really makes you wonder if he's the guy, to be working with Sam Darnold, who we know has great potential, and of course one of the best running backs in the league, in Le'Veon Bell. But certainly, a couple nice pieces. You never know. Maybe they can turn something around, one of those New York teams, and give a little run out
Yeah, I
there in the
do. I
East.
do like your picks. I do like the Titans pick to fall off. Obviously coming from the Jags fan. And my pick as a team that, you might see hit the dust a little bit and go from a playoff team to a non-playoff team. Now, I could cheat the system here and say the Patriots because they are possibly losing Tom Brady. And that actually might be what I just go ahead and do. Now, part of me wants to go ahead and say the 49ers will not be as good as they were this year. I don't think they'll be 13-3. I think we're looking at more around 10 wins next year. However, I'm going to stick with the Patriots. You look at Tom Brady leaving. I mean, sure, you got Bill Belichick as your coach, and now it all depends on if Tom Brady leaves 100% and if the Patriots end up finding a different guy to go throw in there. Because if they draft a rookie, can we really expect the Patriots, even with Bill Belichick, to be able to go back and put up 10, 11, 12 wins? The defense, they have Defensive Player of the Year, if I'm correct. Stephen Gilmore won it, if I'm not mistaken. And he is probably the best cornerback in the league, without a doubt. As much as I would like to say it's Jalen Ramsey, he didn't have the best end of his year ever since he left the Jaguars. But the defense doesn't have studs all over it. They got a couple of young guys I really like. What's his name? Van something. You help me out here, Hayden. You know who I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking
I'm
about.
having.
Yes.
You're talking about on New England? Yeah.
Well, I'll keep on talking while I look it up here. And you look at the offensive side of the ball, they don't really have the best wide receiver targets. I mean, sure, going into the year, it's looking like, AB, Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman. But now without Tom Brady, we're not looking at that core group of wide receivers anymore. We're looking at Josh Edelman, or Julian Edelman, excuse me. Who else? Julian Edelman, Philip Dorsett, N'Keal Harry. Now, N'Keal Harry is a guy that I like and I feel like could turn into something. And then also Mohamed Sanu. But who was I thinking of here? Kyle Van Noy. That's who I was thinking of. There it is. So yeah, like I said, their defense is, it's not the best in the world. Sure, it's looking good, average, middle of the pack. Stephen Gilmore is the best cornerback in the league. There's no doubt about that. But when you go to offense, I mean, the running game wasn't that good all year. I mean, James White's a guy that can catch it out of the backfield. Sony Michel very, very much struggled coming back from his injury, and their tight end spot ever since Gronk left is just empty. And not to even include their offensive line is not really what it was a few years back. So if I had to pick a team falling off, I think I'd go with the Patriots. Maybe still in the playoffs, maybe not, maybe just pushing on the edge. But a team I would really, really believe is going to come back. Now, I really want to say the Jaguars, but I feel like that's a little bit too much favoritism right there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with the Raiders. Now, that might seem like a little bit of a stupid pick considering they're in the same conference as the Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs. But you look at the rest of their division, they got the Broncos. I mean, if the Broncos can get their defense back on track, then that might be a problem for the Raiders. But they just finished 7-9, same record as the Raiders this last year. Chargers, I think they're irrelevant. They're like the sixth biggest team in LA, and they play in LA. So if that says anything. And if I'm correct, the Raiders were making a playoff push towards the end. I'm pretty sure they were still in contention the last week. All they had to do was win, and the Titans had to lose for them to be that 6th seed. And then no one would have got ran over by Derrick Henry. But you look at some of the guys the Raiders have, and everyone wants to hate on Derek Carr, and everyone wants to say, Pro Football Focus, their ratings don't matter. He was the 8th, if I'm correct, the 8th ranked best QB by Pro Football Focus on the 2018-19 season, or 2019-20 season. And I think he's a guy that can get the ball out. He doesn't put up bad numbers. He's safe with the ball. He'll throw you 300, maybe 2 tutties, 1 interception a game. He'll play it the right way. And the only thing I would really like to see them improve on is their wide receivers. You got a bunch of young guys like Hunter Renfrow, and then of course Keelan Doss. If you guys remember watching the what's that HBO show? The one
Game of
with
Thrones?
the camp, whatever it's called.
I got
brain
no
fart,
idea,
brain fart,
brother
where
Pete.
they do
No
the training
idea.
camp. They did it on the Raiders this year, and Keelan Doss looked like a pretty good guy coming out of the camp, and he actually put up some numbers early in the season. They got Hunter Renfrow, and then Zay Jones, of course, they acquired in the trade, and then Tyrell Williams, but they just need to improve there. And then if we look at Josh Jacobs, Jalen Richard, and DeAndre Washington, Josh Jacobs is an all-around three down back. I mean, and if you even want to pass the ball out when you're down, you got Jalen Richard and DeAndre Washington, two great pass-catching running backs. And their offensive line is, I'd say, pretty good. Colton Miller, Richie Incognito, Rodney Hudson, just to name a few. Those all sound like some pretty big names, or at least names you have heard of. And defensive-wise, now this is where I really like them. Very young defense with a couple of, maybe former stars, maybe stars on it. Max Crosby had an amazing season. He's a young guy. Clennon Farrell, the surprise number 4 overall pick. I mean, as much as we like to hate it,
That was a surprise.
he put up a pretty good year this year. We're looking at Maurice Hurts from 2 years ago, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, if I'm correct. He's off to a slower start, but he's getting things done. And you also got to look at LaMarcus Joyner. He's probably the only star on their defense. I mean, if you even want to call him a star, but he's a quality safety that's going to be able to do his job and lead the team. And then Jonathan Abram is probably one of my favorite rookies, I would say, from this past year. His emotion and the way he plays is really fun and awesome to watch. And then also Trayvon Mullen out of Clemson. They just got a lot of young pieces, and with the deteriorating AFC West, not including the Chiefs, of course, I think they can really make a push for that playoff spot next year.
And Pete, if I interrupt you, who I think is actually still under contract another year is Vontaze Burfict.
Yes, he is.
If I'm not mistaken. So he'll be back. Obviously a quality inside backer there. Was it week 1 or 2? I can't even remember. The season hardly started when he took over this year, but another good player. You're making some good points there, with that defense they got. But yeah, go ahead there. That popped in my head. You kind of forget about a guy like that, and then you realize, well, he's a quality player. They certainly got, they're living up to the Raiders between him and Richie Incognito.
That's really
absolutely, yeah. Go ahead.
Actually, kind of came in there right when I was done. And then let's not forget the legend Deshaun Kaiser as their backup quarterback right now. I think that is something that can't be overlooked as well. So if Derek Carr goes down, you know they're still going to win. All right. So anything else you want to add to that about?
Let's go ahead. I'm looking forward to this next segment here. Let's get right into it. Start us off here, with going into next season at the moment, before free agency. Talking about, your top 5 teams here in the NFL.
Right into it. It's pretty clear to say what our number 1 is going to be. I'm pretty sure we can both agree to it. It's the Kansas City Chiefs, without a doubt. We're talking about a team who made some good additions on defense, special teams, pretty good, great play calling from Andy Reid, and just so many weapons on the offensive side, and an array of running backs that they somehow know how to use. Even if it's no-name guys like Raheem Mostert, even though he's not obviously on the team, but guys like him, as you say, have been on a few teams, or just young guys like Darwin Thompson. I think they got to go to the number 1 spot. Number 2, I really hate to do it, because I did say I think they'll fall off a little bit, but until I get proven wrong, the 49ers got to be number 2. I mean, they just almost won the Super Bowl, choked away the Super Bowl, if you will. Jimmy Garoppolo, now I have questions there, but their running game and their offensive line looks good enough to be able to dominate any front 7 in the NFL, or almost every front 7 in the NFL. And their wide receiving core is only getting better now. I'm not sure if Emmanuel Sanders is under contract for this next year. If I'm correct, I don't think he is. But if they still end up going out and picking up a wide receiver, maybe an Amari Cooper, I think the 49ers could become something very special, especially with Deebo Samuel. He looks like the next big star in the NFL at wide receiver. And I don't even have to talk about the defense too much. Star-studded everywhere. Nick Bosa, Richard Sherman, and then a bunch of other names. Number 3, I got to say the Packers. I know 2 in the NFC already. I guess there was going to have to be 2 from one division. A little bit of a brain fart there. But Packers going in at number 3, I think they're only going to get better. This was the first year under this young head coach, Matt LaFleur. Packers defense did perfectly fine. The Smith brothers, even though they're not actually brothers, I know, did a great job this year coming in as free agents. Now, the only place I think we need to improve is maybe in the secondary. It is a little shaky, and obviously the run defense, maybe some new linebackers that can tackle, but along with the Packers, the Jaguars also have that problem. And on the offensive side, everyone wants to give Aaron Rodgers flack, but he's still a quarterback that knows what he's doing. He still is able to see the ball. He still is able to know when his wide receivers are going to be at that exact spot. It's just a matter of if the wide receiving core, beside Devontae Adams, can start getting team chemistry with Aaron Rodgers.
Just a quick interruption, Pete. When you think of the Packers offense, if they were to add another, I don't even want to say dynamic, an exciting playmaker on the outside to go with Devontae Adams, and then you learn, to give the ball to Aaron Jones more, and when you're not, you got a chance for Devontae or maybe a guy AJ Green, whomever else, even a guy like what's his name, Robbie Anderson, something like that. I think the Packers offense can really take off.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they need one more veteran wide receiver, and we're talking about an offense that could maybe finish top 5 offensively, even with an aging Aaron Rodgers. And then Aaron Jones finally, he's a great back. And then having Jamal Williams as that rotation guy is another thing that we can talk about because he's also as much people don't give him credit for, he's a really good back that comes in there, picks up yards when Aaron Jones is down.
And hopefully Dexter Williams can take a step up this year and be a good back option as well.
Dexter Williams. It's just a good overall team. They just have a little bit of holes they need to plug. Now, I kind of forgot about this team. I don't know if I'd put them over the Packers or the 49ers, but I guess it's a tough one to call. But I'm going to stick with them at number 4. It's the Baltimore Ravens. Went 14-2 this last year, so you'd think they were the best team in the NFL. However, I think teams are going to start cracking down on Lamar Jackson just a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to, start hitting the, if you will, crap's going to start hitting the floor with him. I still think he'll be dynamic. I still think he'll throw for a good amount of yards, maybe not the most accurate, but I think rushing is where it's going to come down to. I think a lot more teams are going to focus on keeping a QB spy on him the whole game or having game plans with the ends and the outside linebackers to make sure to contain him inside the pocket and make him throw. Because I think when you make him throw, there's a chance that, you might have a better chance to win the game when Lamar Jackson's not running for 400 yards on you. Defense, it's something to write home about. It's a Ravens defense, so it's obviously pretty good. Not very many, if I'm correct. I don't want to say something that is totally untrue here, but they don't have that many star-studded names, if I'm correct, right, Hayden? Like they used to.
Oh, yeah. No, not at all, Pete. And they let Zadarius Smith, walk to Green Bay. They really don't have much other than, Marcus Peters.
Marcus Peters, and maybe you could even say Marlon Humphreys, their second cornerback, but he's not. He's a good second cornerback, but nothing special. Earl Thomas, obviously, in the safety, but he's an aging Earl Thomas, and he still isn't as good as he was back in Seattle. But you look around, and the Ravens, they got a quality team, a nice young team. The running game's there. The wide receivers look good. Marquise Brown, Hollywood, he's looking good. He's looking like another big wide receiver star, along with Deebo Samuel. That's only going to become better and better as he gets more years in the league. I think I have the Ravens at the number 4 spot. And finally, at the number 5 spot, it was stuck between the Seahawks and the Texans. But, yeah, I couldn't see myself putting the Texans in as a Jags fan. So I decided just to go with the Seahawks. And we're looking at a team with 2 running backs. Chris Carson. I'm sorry. Well, I don't know why I said 2 running backs because I just basically included Russell Wilson as the second running back. Just such a good team overall. The run first way they kind of play, I think they need to adjust a little bit, maybe go to a little bit more of a passing game because I think Russell Wilson, should be able to throw the ball 30, 40 times a game. I mean, I know the rushing offense got them 11 wins, and why fix something if it's not broken? And the defense is young. I think they have some holes in it, but obviously with Pete Carroll coaching, you already have an advantage. And one team that I know you guys are surprised to be left out is maybe the Patriots, maybe the Texans, or maybe the Vikings for any of you Vikings fans listening. But all 5 of those teams I just named, I'd put my money on to beat the Vikings or the Patriots. So that's really where I come from. In defense for the Seahawks, like I said, going back to them, Jadeveon Clowney, Ziggy Ansah, of course he's injured a lot. lot, but he's still a great player. Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, Shaquille Griffin. Those are some pretty big names, and obviously they just fixed the holes in the safety position and maybe a D tackle. I think they got a good shot at maybe going back to the going to the NFC Championship game this next year. Hayden, you want to give me your top 5?
Quicker than you here. I'll start off. If I think about a team here that I think is going to be number one in the league next year, it's the same as you, of course. Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. Doesn't get much better than that. I don't think there's much more to say. We saw what they can do here. We've known what they can do for the last couple of years. That's the way to go. Number 2, I got the Baltimore Ravens. I think they're only going to get better. I think, off their season, they're going to have maybe get another big name player. Now, 14-2, I don't think is, necessarily what they need to live by. I don't think that, they could go 12-4 and be a better football team. You and I both know it here. And I think that's what'll happen. I think they get a couple guys here. I think they keep, their main guys. And they got a nice trio kind of up front there with Mark Andrews, Lamar, and Mark Ingram. And of course, is it Marquise Brown? I believe he's shown some nice stuff his rookie year as well. So I think the Ravens are at number 2. I think they get another guy to help defensively, maybe a couple. They don't need to be big name guys, but they weren't big name guys this year. So the Ravens I got at number 2. Number 3, I have the San Francisco 49ers. That defense is just too good. I don't think they make any big name splashes, Pete. Maybe if they sign another wide receiver, maybe a smaller name, maybe a guy like Randall Cobb, something like that. I think that could help them out. But defensively, they're going to ride on their defense, and hopefully Garoppolo can take a next step for them and lead them in another direction here. They got so many running backs, being Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida there, and Raheem Mostert. I don't know what they do there. I don't know if they keep all 3, get rid of 1 or 2, who knows. But I think they're yeah, absolutely. And I think they're just going to be set simply because of their defense. But, no matter what they got going offensively, they got George Kittle, which I'll get into that here in a minute. But number 4, I got, and this is where it's kind of fun, Pete, because we're a bit different. But I got the Dallas Cowboys. If we talk about a roster, you and I both know the Dallas Cowboys should always be a top 5 team in the league. Jason Garrett, at the helm certainly wasn't anything this year. Mike McCarthy, I don't think he's a Hall of Fame coach, but I do think he's going to help out a lot. And I think that they're going to put together, and I'd like to see. I shouldn't say I'd like to see. I hate the Cowboys, but I think that we'll be seeing an 11-5, 12-4 team next year behind Dak and Zeke. And then moving on to number 5, and this is really where it gets fun. I got the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got Big Ben coming back. I think him and Juju is going to be electrifying like they were in 2018. Excuse me. We saw what their defense can do there the second half of the season. They added a young star like Minkah Fitzpatrick there, and I only see them getting better. And we kind of forget, that part of the NFL was a little bit injury plagued this year, but I do see the Steelers taking the next step. They got. Like I said, they got a great defense. They got nice special teams and Chris Boswell there. And then, Big Ben, of course, he's a Hall of Famer, I think, no doubt. And then you got a guy like Juju who's, a step away from being one of the top in the league here. So James Conner obviously has shown promise as well. I can't remember who they got. I believe Vance McDonald is their tight end. Not bad. I would like to see him hang on to Jesse James, but overall, I think the Steelers are going to be a great team here once they get, kind of back in their rhythm. And I can certainly see them being a top seed in the AFC next year.
Because I guess I didn't really think about Ben coming back and maybe having better chemistry with Juju, other than Mason Rudolph and Hodges did throughout the rest of the end of the season. However, the Dallas Cowboys you included in there, but did not include the Green Bay Packers. So, guys, as fans of the show, I'm going to ask you to keep the mailbag free of death threats this week. Maybe wait till next week, or maybe personally message them to Hayden for all you Packer fans out there. So, anyways, the last thing I kind of want to talk about before we kind of start wrapping up the show here is I'm sure we all went on Twitter and saw Damian Lillard trashing the refs after the Jazz Trailblazers no goaltending call. And I put on our planner here that we were going to have a debate, but I mean, is there really even anything to debate about here? It How do you miss such an obvious call? And now, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like it's the finals or anything, but I mean, it's still a playoff race, and the Jazz and the Trailblazers are both pushing for higher playoff spots. How do you get a call wrong like that?
Absolutely. And the Jazz, the Jazz are in there right now. I believe the Blazers are at number 9. They started off pretty rough. The addition of Melo has helped them kind of level out to where we've seen them here the last few years. But you're exactly right. I believe it was, 118 to 116 or something like that. Dame went up for a layup, and of course we saw Rudy Gobert, splash the net there. There was no call. And it certainly is unfortunate. You saw the interview with Dame after the game, how upset he was, and rightfully so, because we're around the All-Star break. That's obviously the deadline, extension time. That's kind of everything is going here. Can't blame Dame at all for being upset with a call like that. As he's trying to lead a team like the Portland Trailblazers to, I believe, their 4th consecutive playoff appearance here. Obviously, they haven't had much. Made it to the Western Conference Finals last year. I don't think that they're gonna by any means be in the conference finals this year, but the goal is the playoffs for them, of course, and it's unfortunate that a call like that has to happen in any game. Much less a game like that between two kind of playoff picture type teams. We expected more out of the Jazz, but either way, absolutely just a bad call, I think, overall.
I mean, some people might say, it wasn't a 3-pointer, it was only a 2. But think about it, with 7 seconds left, or however left the Trailblazers got the ball here, 7 seconds is a lot more time to try to get a open 2 or maybe a foul instead of having to throw up a bunch of 3-pointers. And when it comes down to the West, we always know the West is tight. The top 10 teams are usually separated by 1, 2, 3 games. And this was the difference between being 3.5 games out of the 8th seed to 2.5 games out. And dare I say it now, I think that's going to come up to bite the Trailblazers in the future.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't. I can't remember who the 8th seed is right now. I want to say that it is the Grizzlies. Okay, so I want to say the Thunder are the 7th seed or something like that. But it certainly is close, and I'm going to look right now. So, also the Mavericks are at 7, and they're 5.5 games above the 8th seed. So the Blazers are 2.5 games out of the 8th seed here, and that certainly is a big game because obviously we know they'd be closer there. Whether the Grizzlies slow down or not, I don't know. Obviously they've been hot here. They're so young behind their dynamic duo of Triple J there and Ja. And I'd love to see. I believe the Celtics have their pick this year, so it's kind of nice to see them have a good season to avoid the Celtics from getting the top pick. But absolutely.
Hayden, you cutting out there. I didn't hear anything after the absolutely.
I certainly heard an interruption as well. But what I was saying was it's too bad, for a team like that. And it's too bad that the review system can't allow a little bit, healthier of a display to figure out exactly what's going on.
Yeah. It sucks that there's a call like that, and sure, 5.5 games back, 6.5 games back of the Mavericks in the 7th seed, but like I said, it's the West. When it comes down to it, it's going to be close. It's not going to be 6 games. I mean, in my opinion, it could be for all we know. But I think that's a huge call for the Trailblazers, and that might end up deciding if they get in the playoffs or not. Now, moving on, finally, exactly. I'm just going to do a little soccer rundown. Not too much news coming here today, but some pretty big games, some pretty big upsets, if you will. Starting off on Friday, not Friday. Let me see if I can get to Friday here. Oh, okay, it's not going to let me. No, nothing really happened on Friday. Let me just say that in the soccer world. So, but on Saturday, Sheffield United beat Bournemouth, and this is something I really, really, really want to dig into a little bit more here. Excuse me. Computer froze. Okay, here we go. So on Saturday, Sheffield United beat Bournemouth in the BPL, and this is something very interesting for any of you BPL fans. Sheffield United are now 2 points clear, or 2 points away from the 4th spot, which gets them into the Champions League. Now, if we're talking about Sheffield Wednesday, last year they were just in the 2nd division in the English league. They were in the Championship. If they manage to stay in one of these top 6, even top 6, I mean, for all I care, if they make the Europa League, after just coming from the English Championship. No big signings or anything like that. I mean, sure, they got Dean Henderson on goal, which a lot of people are pushing for Dean Henderson to be the goalkeeper for the Euros or even get called up in general. Of course, the signing of Burge from Genk in Belgium is a huge signing for them, but they don't have any explosive star players that I can name off the top of my head, and to see them push away into the top 6, 2 points closer to a Champions League spot, Frank Lampard's Chelsea at the number 4 spot is just amazing. Going through some more scores, Everton beat Crystal Palace 3-1. Everton finally was able to get some points on the board in the Prem. Spanish League, Atletico Madrid beat Granada 1-0. Atlanta beats Fiorentina in the Serie A 2-1. Juventus actually ended up losing away to Verona in the Serie A, which is very surprising there. Ronaldo ended up scoring, I think he has 20 goals in 20 league games, which is pretty impressive. All balanced as all things should be, as Thanos would say. And probably the biggest surprise here, if you even want to conclude it as a surprise, Bayer Leverkusen beat Borussia Dortmund at home 4-3, and if I'm correct, 3 or 4 disallowed goals due to replay system, and that's something I want to talk about. The NBA has such a you figured they would be able to replay that to see if it was goaltending or not, when every other league in the world, I mean, sure, the NFL has its problems with it, but you can almost review anything in the NFL. The soccer has its problems with it, but they review almost everything in soccer if there's a questionable call. You just see some stuff like that, and you wonder how far behind is the NBA? Do they just see trouble with it? And how mad the fans get at the fact that some of these calls don't go their team's way, but in the end, it's the right calls, and I really hope the NBA should do something about that. But moving on, we're not here to talk about NBA anymore. This is soccer now. So now we're talking about Sunday. Manchester City, West Ham was postponed. This would be a game, I mean, I'm sure no one even wanted to watch unless you're a Manchester City fan, because they were going to win 7-0, 6-0, 5-0. It wouldn't even be a fun game to watch, in my opinion. Keone Setinen made his first comeback as Barcelona head coach back to his former club, Real Betis. 2 red cards in that game, 1 for each side. Barcelona ended up winning 3-2. Lionel Messi with a hat trick of assists. Frankie de Jong, Jorge Langley, and Sergio Busquets with the goals in that one. Now, the only game I ended up watching this weekend was the Milan Derby. It was the Inter Milan, AC Milan. And it was a tale of 2 halves, because if you look at the first half, AC Milan dominated, absolutely dominated it. And in the second half, Inter just came alive, scored 4 goals. And they closed the title race down quite a bit here with, I think, only 2 points now separating Milan from Juventus, and even Lazio are in third, I think separated by 3 points, if I'm correct here. So I think it's going to be an interesting title race in the Serie A, and see who's going to be able to win it, as actually Inter are now on top after this win with 54, tied with Juventus, but they have the difference on goal differential, and Lazio in third, 1 point behind first and second. So kind of a interesting, fun little weekend for soccer. Not too much news anywhere besides the scores. But that's going to wrap up my soccer segment, and that's going to actually wrap up the end of the show. Hayden, it was fun doing this with you tonight. Hopefully we'll have Isaac back for Wednesday. You'd like to say goodbye or anything?
Absolutely. It was a pleasure, Pete. I always enjoy talking sports with you here. Looking forward to being back here this week.
Boomer Sooner with us. So, like I said, it is episode 6. Here we go again. It is February 10th, 2020. We'll have another episode out on Wednesday for you guys with Boomer Sooner himself back in business. Anyways, here we go again.